So every year we do Turk of the Year and Jerk of the Year, and I'm going to start with Jerk of the Year now. And boy, there was a lot of candidates here, and there's obviously a favorite. We'll see if he wind up winning. So coming in 6th, and we asked you guys to vote, and so I'm reading it in the order that you guys voted, but I largely agree.
But this vote is not binding, right?
The vote is not binding. We do at the end get to decide who the Turk of the Year is.
Who's we?
The Young Turks Supreme Court.
I get you.
Okay, / me. We'll see if we, no, it's the production team to some degree as well, obviously. So we'll see if we agreed with your voting, okay? But coming in at number 6 was Xi Jinping. He is the current leader of China, and the reason that he's on the list is, well, he's running concentration camps, and there are nearly 1 million Uyghurs, or Uyghurs, depending on how you pronounce it, that have been put into those camps. They are being, quote unquote, re-educated as we speak. It is a monstrous crime. And unfortunately, the world is filled with monstrous crimes this year. It wasn't that way all the time, but there's the Rohingya Muslims who have been driven out of Myanmar. There is the tragedy in Yemen. But I'm glad that people did not forget about what's happening to the Uyghur Turks in China, and Xi Jinping is definitely responsible for it. And so, and a lot of times he skirts by because China is an economic powerhouse, and so people don't want to offend the Chinese leader because of how much power they have. But we're the Young Turks, and so you guys voted it that way, and you're right.
So it's interesting to see the reaction from the US to the persecution of Muslims in China. They don't care. Like, there hasn't been a lot of coverage of it, but he's been pretty brutal to the Christian minority in China as well. And that's starting to catch the attention of various news outlets in the United States. So who knows, maybe people will be more aware of what's going on since Christians are being, unfortunately, it seems like there is that double standard, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
You could brutalize Falun Gong and Muslims all day long, but you start touching Christians, and obviously the West will care more. There's just more Christians here, so that's just the reality of power. So now coming in at number 5, more domestic politics, obviously not as hideous as the camps that are in China, but it affected a lot of people here in America. So Susan Collins and Jeff Flake for talking a good game against Trump from time to time and saying that they support women's rights and saying that they had a lot of sympathy and believed Christine Blasey Ford, but at the end of the day, they wound up voting for Brett Kavanaugh, and they vote with Donald Trump almost every time. So all of their talk is empty rhetoric. And then Susan Collins turned around, and when the real people raised money against her because she voted for Kavanaugh, she said, "Well, that sounds like corruption." Preposterous. When, of course, her whole career has been taking corporate PAC money and living and breathing corruption. And it is partly because of that they wound up voting with Trump on Kavanaugh and almost everything else. And so you guys were not fooled by that and had him on the Jerk of the Year list. Coming in at number 4 was Sarah Huckabee Sanders. For, look, I've said this many times. I don't have sympathy for her because she chose that job. But on the other hand, it's the real person making the decisions is Donald Trump. And so he makes these preposterous decisions, he says these ridiculous lies, and then he sends out Sarah Huckabee Sanders to defend them. She's in a totally untenable, unwinnable situation. There is one way to make it a little bit more tenable, quit. Right? And she stays in that position for power and money and fame. So I hear you on making her number 4. She is the mouthpiece for Donald Trump, and that's a pretty odious position. So how are we going to do worse than that? Well, number 3 is, I would argue, clearly worse, and you'll understand why. Mohammed bin Salman. So you want to talk about terrible dictators in the world? So he ordered Jamal Khashoggi, a reporter for the Washington Post, to be chopped up. And they apparently tortured him, strangled him to death, cut off his fingers, and then dismembered and beheaded him. And by the way, that was not anywhere near his only crime. He had kidnapped the leader of Lebanon when he was visiting Saudi Arabia. He tried to foment unrest in the Palestinian camps, which would have ripped the Palestinians apart. This guy, bin Salman, claims to be the leader of Saudi Arabia, and since Saudi Arabia is so important to the Muslim world, although I don't think it should be, but it is, and obviously partly based on the Quran, he pretends to care about other Muslims when in reality he does horrible, horrific things to Muslims throughout the world, and of course, most notably to Yemen, where 85,000 kids have already starved to death because of bin Salman's war that he started. And now 14 million people, and that is an unbelievable number, a stunning number, are in danger of starving to death as we speak, including 5 million kids, because Mohammed bin Salman has blocked their port and won't allow food or medicine to go in. The worst cholera outbreak in human history is happening in Yemen now, all because of Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And then number two, back to domestic politics. And look, we get the scale here, right? Obviously, what's happening here is not the starvation of Yemen, it's not the concentration camps in China. And you could put Kim Jong-un on this list every year for the camps that he runs in North Korea, and the list goes on. Myanmar's leaders were also on the list, they just didn't finish in the top 6. But number two is about domestic politics, and it's Brett Kavanaugh. And so here's a guy who had very credible allegations of attempted rape and came out over the top and basically browbeat his accuser and yelled and screamed and won the day. Congratulations to him, I guess. He's on the Supreme Court, and he didn't seem to have any regret or moments of reflection, and he powered through those hearings. It was heart-wrenching to see what Christine Blasey Ford had to go through in her testimony. And instead of being sympathetic, he seemed to be angry and vitriolic. And now we'll have to have him on the Supreme Court for decades. So you guys voted him number 2. Number 1 on the list is perennial jerk of the year, Donald Trump. So look, my thoughts on Donald Trump being jerk of the year is, Michael Jordan should have been MVP probably every year he was in the league, certainly after he won the first championship. And so they just got bored and they started naming other people. No, let's focus. That guy's the jerk of the year in a landslide, jerk of the decade, and we can go on and on and on. So when you look at all the other people on the list, he's empowered every one of them. Brett Kavanaugh, Mohammed bin Salman in the ZTE deal, Xi Jinping. You find a problem in the world, and you can see Donald Trump's fingerprints on it. Not every problem, of course. You don't want to exaggerate, but Vladimir Putin being encouraged to be more aggressive. Donald Trump. I mean, the absolute mess that he has created here in this country, but most importantly, his disregard for the rule of law and our system of government. So he doesn't believe in democracy. He's not. Look, Republicans voted for him. They had 17 choices, they chose him. And the Republican politicians back him, like Flake and Collins and Bob Corker, et cetera. No matter how much from time to time they go on cable news and criticize him, then they back him. So yes, it's on the entire Republican Party. But the reason Donald Trump is different than, for example, Mike Pence, who also enables him and who's part of his administration, is that Trump just doesn't believe in democracy. So that's why he said about Kim Jong-un, another dictator he empowers and enables. He said, in his country, it's great. When he says stand up, everybody has to stand up and they have to do whatever he tells them. Yeah, that's because he's a dictator. So he doesn't believe that the attorney general should be independent from the president. He believes the White House counsel should represent the president, not the White House and not the people of America. He doesn't believe that the Justice Department should pursue someone who's in power. And he is willing to fire anyone in his path to get to the results that he wants. He lacks all empathy. At the end of the day, for all the terrible people in the world and in the country, it's a no-brainer. Of course it's Donald Trump that's jerk of the year.
And national embarrassment. I was in when I was in Israel, I had a driver that laughed at me, and he was like, "The apprentice guy is your president," and he started laughing at me. And I was like, I didn't put him there. You know, like, why are you laughing at me? I just think that entire list of people who are in cahoots to hijack our morality and just peace of mind, because that's one thing Americans don't have anymore is peace of mind. We live in agony. We live in angst. And that is something that wasn't there some years ago. We had issues, but now we live in constant agony. You know, I call Twitter the "What did Donald Trump do" app. Like, what did Donald Trump do now? Like, that is where we get, do you understand that we get our information and direct contact from the president of the free world on an app? And it's just, it's so disheartening to people who already started with no hope, thinking this is not, we don't have a seat at the table. Now we can't even go in the room.
Yeah, it's demoralizing to confront the fact that one of the dumbest people on the planet is in charge of the country, and he uses that position of power to cause pain and suffering, not just here in the United States, but throughout the world.
Yeah.
That it's demoralizing. It's really difficult to stomach it day in and day out.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a quiet injustice there that people don't speak about, which is, look, so he thinks that clean coal is coal that you take out and wash. He thinks the F-35 is, since it's a stealth fighter, is invisible to the naked eye.
Like literally invisible.
Literally invisible.
What was the conversation he had with the head of the admiral, the aircraft carrier, when he talked about like nuclear submarines? You know, when he was like, "Oh, so you're using," like, he was like, "Yeah, so you got diesel power there," you know, something, and the guy was like, "It's a we have the nuclear powered submarine," you know.
No, he doesn't. He discovered that healthcare was complicated. He discovered that Puerto Rico is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. So he's a buffoon of the highest order, and so the quiet injustice is that you get dispirited because you think, oh, it turns out it doesn't matter if you're smart or hardworking or all the things that we were taught to believe led to success. This buffoon can be the most powerful man on earth. Why? He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His dad bailed him out of 6 bankruptcies, gave him $413 million, and then the media turned around and gave him literally $5 billion in free media during the campaign. He got handed a gift as to who he was running against, and voila! This one of the dumbest people on the planet is the president of the United States.
And I think all of those people are accountable, and I don't give any of them a pass, and I don't feel sorry for Sarah Huckabee Sanders being. I just thought about somebody's joke, and I can't say that here. But I just think that they should all be held accountable, especially these people who are these devout Christians and are always throwing the Bible in people's faces. The Bible says, better you not be born than to mislead my sheep. It says, seek wise counsel. You don't see any of that. So those of you people who support this blindly in the name of the Lord and in the name of the book, the good book, as you call it, and the word, please tell me where you are abiding by the word in this behavior and these acts and the way you treat your brothers and sisters, when the New Testament tells you that there are but two rules to follow, and that is to love your Savior and to love your brother as you love yourself and your Savior. So I grew up in Christianity, and this is why I can't rock with it, because the people who are that are speaking all of these injustices are standing on the Bible and saying that they are followers, and these are the examples of these people. It's just disgusting.
So, I mean, look, when you get to Trump, it's a murderer's row of bad traits: the immorality, the cruelty. We did a year-end show here, well over 3 hours, and we didn't even get to the fact that Donald Trump is committed a felony, according to federal prosecutors, in breaking campaign finance laws and paying hush money to his multiple mistresses, some of whom he slept with while his wife was pregnant or had just given birth. I mean, in the old days, that would have been an immediate disqualifier, but he is filled with such monstrosity that you forget terrible things that he's done that are incredibly important.
You forget him within a day.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why my vote would have been different. But I mean, it's obvious, you can't argue with your vote. I mean, again, the Michael Jordan analogy is perfect. Like, you know, when the guys win Coach of the Year and then they don't win the next year, I'm like, do you think he got dumber? Like, if he was the smartest coach last year, he's the smartest coach this year too. But it certainly applies to Jordan as well. But for Trump, I would vote for Collins and Flake.
Because they enable him?
Because they enable him and they know, right? They made it clear when they go on television that they know. As you say, they speak out against him and in the end they fold. You know, there is some chance that Donald Trump that there is a criminal consequence for Donald Trump's lifetime of criminal behavior now that he has a serious, apparently relentless prosecutor looking into him. But that hasn't happened. We've never sent a president to prison.
There's a first time for everything.
Right, but there is a consequence. It's built into the Constitution. There's a political consequence to his behavior, and they can remove him from office. But short of removing him from office, what staggers me about Jeff Flake and Bob Corker and Susan Collins is that you can stop him politically. Brett Kavanaugh was an opportunity. You're going to get a conservative on the court if Trump names it and there's Republicans in charge. There would have been a different conservative judge. You deal Trump a political loss. John McCain, the tragedy of John McCain's death, aside from the personal tragedy for those people who cared about him, was that it seemed he understood that. Like his thumbs down, he dealt Donald Trump a vicious political defeat. He was willing to deliver that defeat. My hunch is he might have done it again. That he might have been a vote against Kavanaugh, because he saw, not because of anything Brett Kavanaugh does. And if you like Brett Kavanaugh, as Susan Collins thought he was qualified, who cares, man? He doesn't have a right to be on the Supreme Court because he was named to the Supreme Court. We proved that with Merrick Garland, that just getting named to the Supreme Court doesn't give you a right to be on the court. So Donald Trump can be beaten politically, but it's going to take politicians to beat him. And they get it. We think, they say they get it, and then in the end they don't. And so that's why I'd put them as more than enablers. They have become willing participants. He can be stopped, and whoever stops him, John McCain, to some was a hero just for that.
Yes.
You'll be a hero. The first Republicans, the time is running out to be heroic about it. It may have already expired, but the first Republicans to really stop him and say, I oppose him to such an extent that I'm not going to give him one political victory. None, which means I'm going to vote against my interests. But I think it's the right thing to do for the country. That person we know 10 years from now, people are going to be like, oh, that whoever that person is, insert name here, right? That Martha McSally, she's a hero.
Yeah.
It's not going to be her.
They just don't want to face the short-term consequences of being that hero, but
the long-term
that's what a
consequences.
leader is.
So maybe you lose.
Right.
So I mean, what? You think if you're a former senator who stood up to Donald Trump, there's not going to be work? Right?
Yeah.
You do plenty of work. You write a book. There's a zillion things. You'll be a millionaire. You probably already are a millionaire.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
You're in the Senate. Yeah.
I agree with you though. I think those people all around him should be held accountable, and we should look at them in the same negative light. Because if you hang out with a thug and you watch a thug do all the thuggish things that they do, and crime and steal and lie and do whatever they do, and you participate in that and you're complicit in that, Ivanka, remember the word, we have to own that, and we can't just give these people a pass. Sarah Huckabee Sanders gets a lot of empathy on Twitter. A lot of people feel sorry for her. And I'm like, because Michelle Wolf said whatever, or because what happened at a restaurant, she gets up on a podium and she lies daily to the American people.
It's a thuggish, ruggish ball.
Somewhere
right?
there is a person who would say,
you like that?
At the would come out for that press briefing and would say, I don't know, he lied to me again. He lies all the time, he lies every day. You guys know it, he's a liar, and I've sacrificed 2 years of my life and my good name standing up here and telling his lies.
And say sorry to her kids.
I guess I'm gonna be fired today.
And so
like, oh my God, she'd undo everything, like that, you know?
I agree.
So I agree with you guys, and there's so many, but at the root cause is again Donald Trump, right? It's and
it's not a very interesting pick.
No, I hear you, and I'm going to actually back up what you're saying in a second. It's just that and of all of his different things, I mean, like the lying, like today, or just a day ago, he went to Iraq and he said, I gave the troops a 10% pay raise. But that's so easily disprovable. We know that it was 2.6%. And he said, it was me. But no, it's the Labor Department.
And he said it was their first raise in 10 years.
10 years.
They got a raise every year.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but he can't help himself. He's a buffoon and a pathological liar. And so for all the Sarah Huckabee Sanders and the Susan Collins and the Jeff Flakes who enable him, how do you think you're not going to get caught? If not today, by history, you think you're not going to get caught? I mean, it's so obvious what a pathetic person he is, and you bowed your head to him. So I just found the quote, and I want to read it to you guys. And it's a really simple quote. It's from Martin Luther King. And it says,
would have been a Republican, pro-Trump, that's what I hear.
Yeah, you certainly would hear that from Trump. For evil to succeed, all it needs is for good men to do nothing.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.